I never expected the boy I raised from diapers to one day call me, just the help. But there it was. I was sweeping the side hallway of Halberton Hall, a place that still smelled like overpolished marble and boys who'd never done their own laundry, when I heard the words float past me like sour air. That old lady. No man, she's just the help. Follows me around like a stray sometimes. Bit obsessed, honestly. The laugh that followed wasn't even cruel. It was casual. That's what stung the most. Like he didn't even realize what he'd said. Like I wasn't a person. Like I was furniture. I didn't say a word. I didn't even flinch. I just kept sweeping. But my hands trembled, and I felt the dust stick to my palms like shame. Liam. My grandson. My daughter's only child. He had no idea I was standing behind the pillar. He had no idea I'd taken a job at the very university he attended. Not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to feel near him. Wanted to cook for him once in a while. Tuck $20 bills into his coat pocket. Stay useful. Stay seen. When my daughter passed, he was only 6. All curls and wide eyes and nightmares. I was already 60, tired in the bones. But I scooped him into my world and promised him 2 things. That he would never feel alone. And that I would make sure he had every opportunity his mother had wanted for him. So I worked. Harder than I ever had. I cleaned offices during the day, babysat in the evenings, and baked cakes on weekends to sell at the church. When he wanted piano lessons, I sold my engagement ring. When he needed a suit for his scholarship interview, I stitched one from an old blazer and prayed the buttons would hold. He got in. On merit. That much I will always admire. But the tuition wasn't fully covered. So I made a quiet arrangement with the school's bursar, a kind man named Philip who understood discretion. I wired money every month from my savings, never revealing to Liam that I was the one covering the gaps. When he told me his tuition was mostly scholarships, I nodded. Let him believe that. Let him feel proud. I just wanted him to feel tall in a world that always looked down on boys like him. Orphaned. Soft-spoken. A little strange. But I should have known. Maybe I didn't raise him wrong. Maybe the world just got to him before gratitude ever had a chance to bloom. Still, I wasn't ready for that hallway moment. That shrug. That label, the help. The boy who once held my hand walking to kindergarten now acted like he'd never touched me. That night, I walked back to my little studio, barely 2 rooms but always warm. I boiled water for tea and sat at the kitchen table in silence. No TV, no books, just the sound of my own breathing. I looked at the envelope I'd been preparing for his graduation gift. Inside, a letter and a binder of receipts, transfers, and handwritten notes marking every penny I'd ever sent. I had planned to give it to him with a smile, let him know where his real safety net had come from. Instead, I placed it back into the drawer. He wasn't ready, and I was done waiting to be thanked. He saw a cleaner? Fine. Let him find out what that cleaner really paid for. Because if I was going to be invisible to him, then I'd make sure, when I did appear, I'd be impossible to forget. People think that when you're old, you're supposed to slow down. I never learned how. I'd spent so long living by numbers, coupon codes, grocery budgets, early bird electric rates, that I started treating life like a spreadsheet. Save here. Stretch there. Don't spend on yourself until everyone else is taken care of. Especially Liam. He was the reason I still woke up at 5 a.m., and the reason I never turned the heat past just bearable. I saved everything. Not because I had to, but because I wanted him to have more than I ever did. When he got into Halberton University, a place where even the air smelled expensive, he was so proud. I was too. Proud enough to keep quiet when the scholarship covered only 70%. I didn't want to make him feel ashamed. So I made a call. Not to family. I had none left. I called Philip, the bursar, a man I'd once worked for briefly, back when I scrubbed the university's guest lodges. He remembered me. You want to what? He asked, blinking over the rim of his glasses. I want to set up monthly payments, I said, sliding a small envelope across the desk. Quietly. No need for him to know. Tell him it's a grant if you have to. He opened the envelope, his brows rising slightly. Inside was a bank statement showing enough to cover tuition for years. You saved all this? Piece by piece, I said, smiling. Some people collect stamps. I collected stability. He leaned back, nodding slowly. We can do this. And we did. Every month the money came from me. Never late. Never questioned. I took on extra cleaning shifts. Not because I couldn't afford it, but because old habits die hard. Besides, it kept me close. I'd see Liam from time to time across campus. He never saw me, and that was fine. Until it wasn't. After that day in the hallway, after hearing him laugh at me, call me just the help, I went back to Philip's office. I want to make the payments public, I said. He blinked. What changed? I did. He frowned, lacing his fingers. Eleanor, you asked me to keep this quiet. It'll embarrass him. Maybe hurt him. I nodded. I know. But I think it's time he felt something. Philip didn't argue. He simply opened the file drawer and pulled out a folder thick with years of transaction slips, memos, and records. I've also started a fund, I told him, placing a second envelope on his desk. He raised a brow. In my daughter's name. For single mothers. Maybe next year, some girl who's drowning in diapers and debt can put her kid through school without having to bleach conference room carpets on the weekend. Philip opened the envelope and quietly nodded. Do you want your name attached to the fund? No, I said. I want my daughter's name on it. Put it in her handwriting, if you still have her old application form on file. He smiled, soft and sad. You really never wanted anything for yourself? I wanted a clean conscience, I said. And a grandson who didn't flinch at the sight of me. He was silent a long time. Then I added, there's one more thing. He's graduating next month, right? Yes. I want to sponsor the venue. He looked up sharply. The Roseberry Estate? That's already booked. I know. He frowned. You mean by Marissa's family? The girl he's been dating. Engaged, I corrected. They're keeping it quiet. I wasn't invited. Philip hesitated. Eleanor, you're not going to. I'm not going to ruin anything, I said. But I'd like to buy the estate. You want to buy the venue? I already did. Through a silent partner. He blinked. I want you to tell the manager the event will proceed as planned. But all video and presentation access goes through me now. Philip stared at me, stunned. You're planning something. I stood, gently smoothing my thrifted cardigan. Let's just say, I'm finally learning to spend on the things that matter. And I walked out, the folder under my arm, my back a little straighter than it had been in years. Graduation day arrived in a blur of sunshine and starch. The campus was dressed like a bride. White tents blooming across the quad. Ivy climbing up the old lecture halls. Brass quartet playing something bright and forgettable near the fountain. And me. I was dressed in gray. A soft, modest dress with a pearl brooch that used to belong to my mother. I wasn't on the guest list. That didn't matter. I walked through the stone gates like I belonged, because once upon a time, I had earned every brick of this celebration. I had funded it, cleaned it, sacrificed for it. If anyone had a right to witness this moment, it was me. The Roseberry Estate ballroom shimmered with glass and floral arches. Gold accents, satin tablecloths. A chandelier so large it could have housed a small family beneath it. Everything was perfect, polished, filtered, Instagram ready. Marissa's signature was everywhere. The calligraphy place cards. The linen tones. The orchid wall. She always had a taste for appearances. If something couldn't be posed and posted, it wasn't worth her time. I found a seat near the back, next to an older gentleman, who looked like someone's bored uncle. He didn't ask who I was, and I didn't offer. We were both just observers, it seemed. The ceremony began with predictable pomp. Names called, caps tossed, flashes going off like paparazzi strobe lights. And there he was. Liam Dawson. My grandson. He walked across the stage like he owned it, chin high, robe swirling with each stride. Marissa beamed from the front row, all teeth and posture, holding her phone high for the perfect shot. Her parents clapped politely. Everyone else applauded like he'd just solved world peace. I didn't clap. I just watched. When they moved to the reception portion, the guests filtered into the ballroom like a tide of expensive cologne and stiff smiles. Waiters passed out, hors d'oeuvres no one could pronounce. The MC stood near the podium, nervously checking the AV screens. That was my cue. I quietly approached the event manager, a kind-faced woman named Tasha, who now technically reported to me. She met my eyes and gave a tiny nod. "Ready, ma'am?" "As ever," I whispered. She turned to the tech assistant and said calmly, "Play the presentation." The room dimmed. Marissa's prearranged slideshow, designed by her cousin, an influencer, was supposed to play next. But what filled the screen wasn't a gold-filtered montage of curated selfies. It was me. And him. Liam, 4 years old, tugging on my apron as I stirred soup. Liam, 8, clutching a trophy while I beamed behind him. Liam at 16, asleep at a desk, a blanket pulled over him that I'd tucked in the night before. Then came the receipts. The transfers. Tuition confirmations. Line by line. Date by date. No narration. Just captions. The woman who stood behind him every step of the way. The hands that fed him, clothed him, paid for his future. The one who was always just the help. Gasps filled the room. The MC fumbled his microphone. I could hear Marissa whispering sharply, "What is this? This wasn't approved." She turned on the event manager. "Turn that off. Now." Tasha didn't even flinch. "She's the venue owner," she replied smoothly. "She has final say." Marissa's face turned the color of a sunburn. All eyes turned to Liam, who looked like someone had punched the air out of his chest. Pale, wide-eyed, frozen in place. I stepped up to the mic. My voice was calm, soft, but it carried. "I wasn't invited to this celebration," I began, "because I was told I didn't belong. I was too embarrassing, too much of a reminder of where he came from." I glanced toward Liam, who couldn't meet my eyes. But the thing about erasing someone is, they tend to leave fingerprints. I gestured to the screen behind me. "This venue, this slideshow, this food, these chairs, the very floor beneath your feet, I own all of it. I paid for it. Just like I paid for every single year of my grandson's education. Not for applause, not for recognition, but because I believed in him." A hush blanketed the crowd. Not judgment, not pity, something else. Respect. I let my gaze settle on Marissa, who now stood fuming, red-lipped and trembling. "I never wanted to make a scene," I said. "But I thought maybe, just maybe, the people who built your world deserve to be seen before you tried to bury them under white roses and empty toasts." I stepped away from the mic and walked slowly down the aisle, past stunned faces, through the double doors, into the late afternoon light. I didn't stay for the champagne. I didn't need to. They had all seen it now. Every picture, every invoice, every sacrifice I'd stitched into the hem of his future. They could never unsee it. And he would never unfeel it. I didn't stay to watch the fallout. Some people might have. They would have waited to see Marissa's mascara smear, or Liam's face crumple under the weight of truth. But I didn't need that. I'd already seen enough. I left the Roseberry estate quietly, stepping into the late afternoon sun like a woman reborn. Not triumphant, just finally unburdened. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's shadow. I didn't feel like the help. I felt like myself. 2 days passed before I heard anything. Then came the trickle. First, a flurry of whispers from the alumni forum. One post read, "You all saw that video, right? The grandmother who paid for everything? They called her just the help." Then Marissa's brand partnerships started to vanish. A candle company pulled her face from their banner ads. A bridal designer reposted the clip with a statement, "We stand with women who build others up, not erase them." Even the wedding blog that featured her dress issued an apology. "Our editorial team deeply regrets showcasing an event that disrespected a maternal figure in such a public, painful way." Public sympathy flowed like a tide, but not toward Liam and Marissa. Toward me. And then he came. Liam. He showed up at my door in the same shirt I'd once patched by hand during his senior year of high school. A shirt he now looked far too small in. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He stood awkwardly, shifting his weight, eyes rimmed red. "Gran," he said. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything." He took a shaky breath. "I didn't know. I mean, I knew you helped a lot. But I didn't realize everything. What you did for me. I was stupid. I let Marissa. I just thought fitting in mattered more than." I held up a hand gently. "You let the woman you love erase me," I said softly. "And you stood there while she did." He flinched. "I didn't expect sainthood, Liam. I didn't expect a throne, but I did expect that, when someone tried to cut me out of your life, you'd at least say something. Not even for me, but for the truth. His jaw clenched. His voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't know how to fight her. Then you weren't ready to marry her. He lowered his head. I didn't come here to ask for money, he murmured. I know, I said. I came to ask if maybe you could forgive me. Even a little. I looked at him for a long, heavy moment. You have a choice now, I said. You can walk away and grow. Or you can stay small. Keep chasing the approval of people who treat others like they're disposable. But you don't get to have it both ways. He looked up, startled. Hurt. But I'm your grandson. I nodded. You are. And that used to mean something. Now it means you're a young man who has some soul searching to do. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. And so he left. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Shoulders rounded, steps slow. Like someone who'd finally seen the damage in the mirror. And didn't know yet how to face it. I closed the door behind him. Then stood in the silence of my kitchen. No music. No clock ticking. Just my breath steady and sure. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt. But because this time, I wasn't grieving the loss of love. I was honoring the presence of self-respect. A year later, I sold the Roseberry estate. Tripled my investment. People said I was lucky. I said it was just timing. And maybe it was good timing for once in a life that had so rarely allowed it. I didn't spend the money on anything flashy. No yachts. No vacations I'd never feel at home on. Instead, I used part of the profit to open a foundation. It was small. Humble. Just a few rooms in a converted brick house on Maple Street. But the plaque on the door read something that made my chest tighten every time I passed it. The Eleanor Dawson Fund for Single Mothers. Inside, there were computers for job applications. A pantry filled with staples. Childcare stipends. Bus vouchers. Warm blankets. Things I once needed and never had. And sometimes on Wednesday afternoons I'd bring soup. Just like I used to for Liam. Only now it went to women who said thank you like it wasn't a chore, but a relief. That was the real return on investment. Not the money. The humanity. And somewhere along the way, between the budgeting seminars and the support group tea circles, I reconnected with Leonard. He wasn't anyone grand. Just a quiet man from my church years ago. The kind who never rushed a sentence. And made a pot of coffee like it was a sacred ritual. We started with morning walks. Then came afternoons in the garden. Then came shared dinners, silent books side by side, warm glances across the steam of mismatched mugs. He never asked me for anything. Never made me feel like I needed to explain who I used to be, or who I was now. He just showed up. Consistently. One afternoon, as we were replanting lavender in the backyard, he said, You know, I used to think you were sad. Back then. I looked up. And now? Now I think you were just carrying too much. I smiled. And now? He brushed soil off his palms. Now you walk like your hands are finally empty. We never talked much about Liam. But one day a letter came in the mail. No return address. Just 2 words written in plain block letters on the front. I'm trying. No apology. No excuses. Just an acknowledgement. I didn't respond. Not out of malice. But because trying is a road you walk on your own. I wasn't waiting at the end of it. I'd already started my own. I redecorated the house. Stripped out the furniture Marissa once mocked as dated. And filled it with soft chairs, warm throws and books, so many books. I replaced the stiff dining set with a round wooden table. No edges. No harsh corners. A place for softness. For healing. One morning, as the spring sun filtered in through the kitchen window, I pulled a small frame from the drawer. It was a photo. Aged at the corners, the colors slightly faded. Me and Liam. He was 5. I was holding him, flour smudged on my cheek, his hands sticky from cookie dough. I placed it on the shelf. Not to mourn, but to remember. To honor the version of myself who gave everything. Without bitterness. Without regret. Because even if the world tried to erase her, she had existed. And that mattered. That afternoon, Leonard and I sat on the porch. The air smelled like rosemary and rain. We didn't speak for a long while. Just sat. Then he asked, Do you think you'll ever fall in love again? I turned to him, looked him in the eyes, and smiled. Maybe I already have. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to our channel